Coming up on UGTV, Board of Commission meeting of the Unified Government of Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas.
Good evening, everyone. We want to thank you for attending tonight's commission meeting. At this time, I'll call the meeting to order and ask the clerk to call the roll.
Roll call, Philbrick. Roll call, Philbrick.
Here.
Bynum.
Here.
Walker.
Here.
Townsend. McKiernan.
Here.
Murguia.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Kane. Markley.
Here.
Walters. Holland.
Here. This evening, the invocation is being given by Sister Therese Bangert of Our Lady in St. Rose Catholic Church. Please stand and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
God of light and darkness, during these holy days, one common expression of celebration and faith seems to be lights. Lights on our streets, lights on our roofs, lights on our trees, lights in the works of generosity and sharing. We believe, God, that you are a God who works both in the light and in the darkness of the seed growing in the earth, the darkness of the womb where the child grows, and the darkness of hard times and hurts. Tonight, let us together send a blessing to the people of this community, that during these holy days they may know, God, your kindness and the kindness of their neighbors. That your light, God, will shine on those who live in darkness, our sisters and brothers across the street in detention, our sisters and brothers who worry about their families being torn apart by immigration, our sisters and brothers who are homeless, our sisters and brothers who carry heavy burdens not known to us. Bless them. I thank you, God of light, for the light that you have planted within the spirit of every person in this chamber and each commissioner. In a special way tonight, I thank you for the light that you have planted in the hearts of Commissioner Walker and Mayor Holland. They have shared their light generously with this community and now take their light out of this governing body. Bless them, God, with your light of peace and with our gratitude. Bless us and this meeting with your light of peace. Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sister. I'd like to ask the clerk, not if, but how many revisions are there to tonight's agenda?
A total of 4. The first one is under the mayor's agenda, item 1.
Can you check that microphone to see if there's more volume for the clerk, please?
I can speak a little louder.
Okay.
Under the mayor's agenda, item 1, there is a revised resolution indicating the commission's salary stated in section 1A should be per year, not per month. Under consent agenda item number 8, the nomination of Matt Watkins to the Housing Authority Board has been added. Under public hearing agenda item 1, an executive summary of the Legends Apartments and West Lawn projects has been provided. And under the announcement section, Commissioner Bynum would like to make a statement. Those are all the revisions.
All right. All right, that brings us to the first order of business for the mayor's agenda. We have a resolution on salaries. I'm actually going to change the order of these and do the mayor's salary first. The intent of this is to set it similar to the district court judges, which are $120,000, and effective in 2022. Is there any, I'll bring that one to the floor first. Is there any discussion about that one? My experience is there were less questions about that one, so I thought I'd start with that one. Any questions or comments about that one? All right, is there a motion? By the way, this would require 8 votes by the commissioners, is that correct?
Move for approval.
Second.
All right, it is properly before us. Roll call.
Roll call, Philbrook,
Yay.
Was that an
Yes.
aye?
Yes, well, yeah, aye.
Thank you.
Bynum,
Yay, yay. Aye.
Walker,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Murguia,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Kane, Markley,
Aye.
Walters. Motion carries 10-0.
All right, that brings us to the commission salaries. And the proposal that is before you is to take the salary that it was 20 years ago and take the cost of living increases that have been given to the rest of the employees at the unified government for the last 20 years and add it to that, and to continue to add those cost of living increases from here forward. And then the commissioners would begin receiving that new salary in 2022. And so that is the recommendation that's in front of us. So I'll open that up for discussion. Commissioner Murguia.
Thanks, Mayor. First of all, thank you very much for bringing this forward. I really appreciate it. I know it's been talked about for a lot of years. I have a couple of questions, mostly for the benefit of the public. Administrator Bach, can you tell the public and remind all of us how much money in-district commissioners make annually?
Yes, ma'am. The current in-district commissioners make $12,000, and the at-large district commissioners make $14,400.
Okay.
And that was the way it was set by the original charter ordinance in 1997. At that time, I will just add the fact, since I was here, there was a comparable done across other jurisdictions. They were looked at as a hybrid between what is done between county commissions and what is done by city councils. And it was determined 20 years ago that this would be a fair wage at that time to give our elected officials.
So 20 years ago, $12,000 was a fair wage for commission work, correct?
Yes, and granted, we're a hybrid. I mean, because we're the only consolidated one. So the commission that looked at that, the study commission looked at it, and that's what number they came up with after their analysis.
Okay, and can you tell me, is there any elected official or employee group that is not paid a cost of living increase?
Well, not typically. We try to have all the elected officials. There's a formula that came forward from the charter that said how we would treat elected officials, and then our non-elected our employees, either represented by union or the non-union groups, other than a few years during the recession, typically receive some type of COLA.
So are you telling me that commissioners for the last 20 years have received a cost of living increase?
No, the commissioners have received none. They are the one group within the unified government that have not had any pay adjustments for the last 20 years.
Okay, so just for clarity, the commission not only has not received a cost of living increase for 20 years, they are not currently eligible for a cost of living increase per our charter, ever, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So I really appreciate what the mayor brought forward, and I think it is very well thought out, and I appreciate the comparison to what everyone else gets in the way of a COLA. But I think that our charter needs to be amended immediately to include COLA increases for commissioners. And I may be the only one that feels that way, but I'm going to lay it out there and see what other people think about that.
Okay, that's, when you say immediately, that's the proposal, is that the COLAs would go into place immediately, you just wouldn't receive it. You're saying to go ahead and receive it immediately.
Yes.
Okay. All right, Commissioner Walker.
Well, since I'm leaving, I'm going to voice an opinion I've held for a long time, and that is that these salaries were set up on the notion that this was a 10-hour-a-week job, that basically you got your agenda, you went to standing committee, you showed up at a commission meeting like tonight, and so a full week of work would be 10, 12 hours. Now, I can tell you in the 4 years, you can probably count on one hand the number of weeks in which I only put in 10 hours in relationship to this government. And I know there are people here on this dais that attended far more community and neighborhood group meetings, went out to events, did things above and beyond what was originally conceived. And I think that's been true from the very beginning. I support the idea that the commissioners moving forward get the cost of living allowance, if you want to call it retroactively determined, so be it, and that the steps be taken to approve that. If we can do it tonight. If not, then the document needs to be drawn up and put on an upcoming agenda. So I support that idea. It's only fair. This is a 20, 25 hour a week job minimum. And I dare say if you're not doing that, you're not doing the job. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Kane.
Well, I was going to try not to talk, but that didn't work. Kenny, can we make those changes tonight?
Are you just trying to make, just want to make the change in the effective date of when it goes in, when it's
Yes.
implemented?
Yes.
I think that's something we could easily,
All right, was that a motion?
That's a motion.
Second.
Okay, so
okay, I say we could do that, but I'm not sure what we just did.
here's what I can say. At the bottom of page 1, section 1, letter A, says district members of the commission shall receive $17,700 per year. The 2 commissioners elected at large shall receive $21,252 per year. Said salaries shall be subject to an annual cost of living increase as set forth on paragraph B, which is to keep it moving forward, and such salaries shall go into effect beginning in the term commencing, and your recommendation is to change it to 2018 instead of 2022.
That's correct, Mayor.
That's the only change that's being, it is to move the effective date up to January 1 of 2022. From 2022 to 2018. Is that, am I understanding you right?
That's correct, Mayor.
Okay. No, I just want to make sure that we're clear on exactly what it is, because I don't want to have an unclear document floating around. So.
That's right. We've tried that once. County Administrator?
Ken, I just want to make sure for the commission to take action that changes the salary amount in the coming year and not after a next election, because the charter calls out that any action by this commission to change the salaries cannot take place until another election occurs. Do they have to take action to amend that charter to give them the authority to do that immediately? Because I don't think that's scripted in this.
Well, that is correct. Now, we're amending that portion of the charter to do this. The Bach is referring to is paragraph C. The increase shall become effective until the commencement of the next term. So, in effect, you're also deleting paragraph C.
But did they have to take affirmative action to amend the charter to say that okay, that would just do away? So they would be taking action to eliminate paragraph C from the charter resolution.
Now, I want to offer a potential other interpretation of that. That by inserting the date of 2018, it could say, C says the commission may otherwise increase or reduce. It wouldn't necessarily negate C, it would just override C for 2018. And then C would still be in place for future years.
Mayor, can you explain that again?
So by putting the date 2018 in, you're making a specific new starting point by adding the COLA and catching up on COLA from previous years. In section A, when you get to section C, it continues to say, you see, we added B that says the commissioners shall be eligible to receive an annual cost of living increase based on the et cetera, on how we do it. C says, then you can also do it this way. That would be for future. Now, we could just say the commission may, in the future, increase or reduce the annual salary of at-large commissioners by legislative action and keep C in place. Do you see what I'm saying?
I think that's correct. You could, if you just change the date to 2018, any future changes would have to be within those time periods.
This letter C would still be in effect for the future. So 2018 is an immediate change, and it's going to take 8 votes to do this, so that would effectively supersede for this time C, but then C would still be in place in the future.
Meaning that...
See what I'm saying?
Sort of.
See?
It's a little confusing. So, and then in 2018, not only would it change the amount of money paid to commissioners, but it would also be, it would implement that the commission would be eligible for a COLA moving forward.
The COLA is in place.
Yes, yes, I understand.
Is that agreeable to our legal team?
Yes.
So the only thing we need to do is change the date from 2022 to 2018, and the rest of the ordinance stays the same. Doug doesn't agree with that.
Sure, you don't have to make any amendment to C in order to do that?
Well, I think if you read the whole thing, together, now you're establishing a new base in 2018 of these new salaries, and then but any future changes after this, because they'll now read in 2018 this is a salary.
Okay.
Future changes would still have to comply with those time periods of being 120 days before the election, and the reason I'm saying that is because by getting 8 votes to do this, you're amending the consolidation study report to make this happen. You're basically just setting a new baseline at that salary of 17 whatever in 2018.
Okay. I follow that. I agree. Okay.
All right, Commissioner McKiernan.
And actually, I think Ken just answered. So A sets a new base today. B sets up the continuation of a cost of living adjustment in future years consistent with other cost of living adjustments. And C says if the commission is going to take any future action regarding the base pay, then it has to go through an election cycle to take effect.
That's right.
All right.
Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you. Following up on what Commissioner McKiernan asked, the last part. So when, if this last version is passed, if we adopt it, when is the paycheck going to differ? We're setting a new baseline. I was concerned about what Administrator Bach mentioned, because I remember when that was brought up at our last meeting when this was first contemplated. We don't have to go through another election cycle to have the paycheck change.
No.
This would set it up. By this, it would be January of 2018. It would start in 2018.
All right, there's a motion and a second on the table. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Roll call. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Gia.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane. Markley.
Aye.
Walters. Motion carries 10-0.
All right. That brings us to our consent calendar, included with the pink shift for the pink slip for the additional one. No, that's done. The pink sheet is item number 8 on the consent agenda. You want to pull off the state and federal legislation program? All right, that is pulled. Is there anyone else who would like to pull an item off the consent agenda? Anyone in attendance tonight, member of the staff or commissioner, anything else not removed from the consent agenda will be voted on by a single vote.
Move to approve all other items as submitted.
All right, let the record show no one else is moving forward to remove an item. It is properly before us. Roll call.
Roll call. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Regia.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Walters.
Aye.
Motion carries 10-0.
All right, item number 1, state and federal legislation. Mr. Kane.
And this goes to the casino gaming. You know, it was my impression that we were to remain neutral. And then as I watched Mike Taylor lobbying last year, it was if the community wasn't interested in the Woodlands at all. And during this election cycle, I found out that the Woodlands is a very hot item and that the folks would like to see it opened. And so I don't like the language here, because what I don't want to do is I don't want to send the wrong message. If this comes out of committee, we don't know if it's going to come out of committee, but I don't want to slam the door before it gets opened and it's forced down our throat. And I'm very nervous with this language. I would feel more comfortable if we said we were neutral and that there were certain guidelines, and they do have to. I've talked to these guys a couple of times. They have 2 or 3 different plans. But if the front door is closed before you get in there, and you can't say, I've got this plan, so it's uncomfortable for them to say, well, I tell you what the plan was, but you don't want us. And that's their version of what happened. I've talked to them today. I met with them today. I met with them yesterday, you know, because I wanted to clarify what was said yesterday and again today. So I don't like this language. I would rather we send it up there and say that we're going to stand aside and let the state do their process And when it comes out of the committee, if and when it comes out of the committee, then we would ask them for what their actual plan, their master plan of the overall development.
So is your, because as I'm reading this, on page 4 of the legislative item, it says, the unified government supports legislative measures which assist the Woodlands in reopening as a gaming facility.
Well, but it also says the government opposes any changes to the state law, the gaming laws, and we don't know what the state's going to do.
Right.
You know, and if we don't know what the state's going to do, how do we react to that?
All right. So,
I think it's the,
go ahead.
well, I believe the point that probably is made by Mr. Taylor at the state legislature, which would be different from your neutral position where he's made in the past, is on the second line where you said, you know, that we support the Woodlands as gaming facility, and the Woodlands provides benefits to the local community which are on par with the benefits provided by Hollywood Casino at Kansas Speedway. And I believe if that's where he's taken exception to the language that's been submitted before, because as it's been submitted, the benefits provided to the Woodlands facility have not been on par with what it goes to Hollywood Casino. So if we wanted to remove that and just support language, I'm not sure quite how to do it.
That would be great.
That would be definitely a different position than we've had in the past.
So you want to remove the on par with benefits provided to Hollywood Casino?
Well, that would, I think that's what the commissioner is asking for.
Yes.
Well, I was suggesting, what if we just struck the last sentence? What if we kept it the way it is up front and said the unified government opposes any changes to state gaming law, or we say the unified government is neutral to any changes in state gaming law? If we put the unified government is neutral to changes in gaming law, or we could just take that last sentence out altogether, and then that would, I think, accomplish what you wanted as well.
Either one. I just don't want to slam the door on something we're not sure what's going to happen yet.
I think I prefer to take out the last sentence because I like it saying we want the benefits on par with the development agreement. I like that part.
I do too.
And I think the last part we can say we can just take that out.
That would work with me.
You're comfortable with that?
Yes, sir.
Well, if you'd make that motion, I'd second it.
I make that motion.
I'll second it. Let the record show Mike Keane and Mark Holland agreed on the last meeting of the year. It had to happen.
Now, was that motion to approve everything with that change?
Yes,
or
it
was that
was.
just for that one item?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so we're striking the last sentence on gaming, casino gaming, and approving the rest as it is. All right. It is before us. Roll call.
Roll call, Philbrook,
Yes.
Bynum,
Aye.
Walker,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Regia,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Kane, Markley,
Aye.
Walters. Motion carries 10-0.
All right, that brings us to public hearing agenda, and it's an ordinance and resolutions. There will actually be 3 votes for this, but we'll also have a public hearing. So we're going to discuss the new Legends Garage and Lawn CID, the West Lawn CID. We're going to ask our Economic Development Director to give us an introduction.
Good evening, Commissioners, Mayor John Stevens, Economic Development. Tonight, we are here to conduct the public hearing on the Legends Garage CID to create the new Legends Garage and Lawn CID and to consider a resolution for the First Amendment of the Legends Apartments and Garage, as well as consider a resolution approving the West Lawn Development Agreement. And I know all the Commissioners and Mayor have received those in advance of the meeting this evening. So in short, I will have the developer come up and give a more detailed presentation about the projects at hand. However, in summation, the CID would create a 1% CID, sales tax CID, within the Legends property, and it would terminate the existing 0.6% CID, sales tax CID. And it would go towards funding the garage, common area, and amenities improvements. The CID would generate a total estimated of $26.5 million in proceeds to fund these improvements. and the existing 0.6 or 0.6% TDD, which is the Transportation Development District, that would remain in effect and unchanged for the approximately 10 years that are remaining. The MBE, WBE, LBE requirements that are in the development agreement and the amendment are as follows. Standard 18.15.7 and the failure cause penalties are 1% increase to the pilot in the garage and apartment amendment for a potential reduction in the CID cap by $875,000, and the west lawn would be $450,000 in reduction to the CID for failure cause. So in short, on the garage and apartments, this is a $64.3 million total project. IRBs, industrial revenue bonds, will be issued, but the developer will receive no property tax abatement. The developer will pay a 10-year pilot, and they will complete the project by December 31st of 2020. And the CID proceeds that go to the garage and the landscaping and sidewalk associated. So it's the public portion of the garage, and the garage is capped at $17.5 million. That is what the CID proceeds are for. So as you can see here, this is the pilot schedule agreed to, starting in year 1 at $395,368 and continuing through year 10 on an accelerating scale. You can also see the LMW increase for failure to comply to that. So, and then I will also cover the West Lawn is a $27.6 million development that I believe we previously discussed, related to improving the Legends shopping area. And IRBs for that will be issued, but they will receive no property tax abatement. And it will be capped at $9 million in CID proceeds, and it will be used for public improvements that you'll be hearing about tonight. It will not be used for demising tenant improvements, etc. So you can see the CID area here as outlined. And at this point, I would invite the developer up to give their presentation.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Greg Musil with the Rouse Fretz Law Firm, 5250 West 116th Place in Leawood, Kansas. Appreciate the opportunity to appear before you on behalf of the West Lawn Project and the Legends Apartments. Many of you were here in 2015 when the Legends Apartment was first before this body, and the initial CID was created at 0.6% to fund a portion of the public improvements, in large part the garage parking structure that would have 650 stalls, of which 350 would be dedicated to public uses for the retail in the area. I'm here tonight with Dan Lowe of Legacy Development and also with John Hanson with IRR. John is the brains of the organization. He knows all the numbers, so if you have questions, anything that has to do with math, I'll probably turn it over to John. This is an expansion of the project that was approved in 2015. It will continue the Legends Apartments on top of a 650-car parking garage, but it will also increase the number of those apartments and increase what we believe the quality of those apartments. Some of the details of the agreement are that the original agreement had that we had to charge at least $1.15 a square foot in rent. Now it's $1.35 because the apartment demand is different today even than it was a couple years ago. It's still hot, but people like smaller apartments with higher quality amenities. We intend 300 units instead of the 260 units that were anticipated in 2015. The parking garage gets slightly bigger so that those additional spaces or additional apartments can be parked. But it expands to do things in the West Lawn area in the retail development so that the retailers in your West Lawn development can keep competitive and keep drawing and attracting persons to the county. The apartments are on the left. The West Lawn development is on the right. I think you know about Legacy, and I'll stop and try to answer any questions, or Mr. Lowe can, but Legacy's been around a long time building high-quality retail development throughout the country, places where they have been successful, including, of course, the Legends outlets itself. And they've emphasized a lot of times public-private partnerships to get done those things that could not be done without the public-private partnership. As John summarized, this would create a new 1.0% CID instead of the 0.6, so there'd be a 0.4% increase in the sales taxes in this area. That would fund the west lawn improvements, which we'll talk about in a minute. It will fund the apartments and the parking garage and all of the public amenities associated with those. Yeah, the UG gets increased pilots, more residential units for a first-class development, really tied to the Legends outlets. The total investment in these projects is about $100 million, $64 million in the apartments, of which 17.5 would be spent by or funded by CID. The West Lawn is about a $40 million project with about $9 million spent or funded by the CID. So the overwhelming percentage of this is private investment. Again, here's the West Lawn concept project with CID funding for garage, the public portion of the land, sidewalk, signage, and connectivity. Some different views. And then on the West Lawn, $9 million CID cap. We hope and believe that the CID will create more than $26.5 million in revenues, but we have agreed in the development agreements to cap that, so never will you be obligated to fund anything beyond the $26.5 million. The West Lawn project would include some hardscaping and landscaping, a video board, shade structures, more pedestrian plaza amenities that pedestrians like, new monuments and facade improvements on the shops. As you know, the retail competition continues to get stronger throughout not just this county, but throughout the metro area. Developments like Blue Hawk in Southern Overland Park. I know what your goal is to continue to have people like me drive up here and buy things. And I've continued to do that, and that's a good thing, and this will help continue that. Some of the concept of what would be improved with the West Lawn project. The nits of the agreements that we spent a lot of time on with your outside counsel, Mr. LaSalle, I think I saw earlier, and with John and with Doug and others, was to make sure that the two agreements limited what was done in each portion coming out of a single CID. So there's just some administrative things that have to be done. The agreements do that, I believe. They describe both projects, what has to be done, what the deadlines are to get those done, and they all relate to the petition that was filed back on November 16th to create the CID. And that's, I'd be happy, and a team would be happy to answer questions if you have them.
I think what we'll do is we'll go ahead and open the public hearing and complete the public hearing, and then I'll open it up to the commissioners for questions.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. All right, I will open up the public hearing and ask if there's anyone in attendance tonight. If there's anyone in attendance tonight who would like to speak in favor of this project, please step to the microphone at this time. Let the record show no one is stepping to the microphone. If anyone would like to speak in opposition to this proposal tonight, please come to the microphone. Let the record show no one is stepping to the microphone. We'll now close the public hearing, and I will open it up to the commission either for questions and comments or for a motion on item number 1.
Move approval of item number 1.
All right.
Second.
Commissioner Walters.
I just had a couple questions. I think this might be to John. I'm looking at Exhibit C, the pilot schedule. Has that been altered as a part of this process from what the previous version of the development agreement included? And my question is, I heard the value of the project discussed, but I'm puzzled about the projected value of $19 million in the pilot schedule.
Sure. The pilot schedule has been altered. It's been rounded, it's been moved up based on the newly anticipated construction costs, and so you have the new per unit value has gone up, and therefore all of the basis of the pilot schedule has increased accordingly from the original plan.
I can't find the 19.5 million anywhere in the overall project budget. So what does that 19.5 refer to?
It is based on a projected 300 units at $65,000 value per unit, which was an agreed upon valuation basis.
But I see in the overall project budget a number much higher than that for construction cost, including land and parking. And when you back out the parking costs, I just can't get anything near
Right.
19,500,000.
Well, the valuation is actually, it is based also on the actual assessed value, not the total construction value. It's based on the completed estimated value related to it, if that makes.
Okay, well, that's a separate, I guess what I'm hearing is, I thought you said it was based on construction cost, and now I'm hearing you say it's based on assessed value.
No, it's projected value after completion of construction, not, it's not based on the construction, on the gross construction cost.
And I'd probably add our previous, I can't remember the number, John, was it $56,000 a unit was our previous one? So
58.
58. So yeah. What we've done is we go through and you look at construction costs and you factor that into the equation, and then we look at sales of other units and how they're valuing out through the area, and we come up with our best assumption as to what the value will be of the units. You can, I mean, if I were to structure, we've done one of these pilot schedules on each of the developments out west, and this number has consistently gone up with each project area.
And is this pilot commensurate with the pilots we did for the apartments to the west?
Significantly more?
Yeah, significantly higher than the ones to the west.
Valuations are going up in the way they're being assessed.
Yeah.
Okay. One additional question. I know we've talked about this before. I would like to hear it just one more time. And that is the public parking. How will that be controlled and secured so that it's actually available to the public?
I'm happy to answer that, but I might turn it over to the developer to specifically speak to how that will flow.
Thank you, Commissioners. John Hanson with IRR, Public Finance Consultant to the developer. Commissioner, thank you for the question regarding the parking. We're still working through final design on the parking structure, but the concept is that access to the garage at both access points will be available to the public at all times, and then there is likely to be a portion of that garage that will be gate access only for residents of the apartment complex, so that they have separate either partial levels or full levels above the public parking area, but that full public access would be made available to the at least 350 public parking spots that we are committing to within the development agreement.
My question, I think, more specifically is, since you are providing one space per unit, what action are you going to take to make sure that if someone has 2 or 3 cars, that they don't use the public parking spaces?
I certainly have not gotten to that level of operational detail, and I don't believe that our team, other than throwing concepts around, have gotten to that level of detail yet. It is open to the public, so it is possible that a resident, much like anyone else of the public, could park a vehicle in those public parking spaces.
I'm Dan Lowe with Legacy Development. Thanks for your time this evening. Actually, we won't manage the apartments. We will put that out to people that actually do manage apartments on a professional, regular basis. But I also know that part of the management process is that individuals will register cars. So we will be able to monitor whether cars are parking in the secured apartment area, or if they're in the public space. We'll be able to cite them if they're in the public space. We also been told by the group that we're talking with about managing the property that there's as many people that don't have cars as there are that may have 2 cars. and we anticipate that there will probably be ample space to accommodate the few individuals that have more than one car. But we do anticipate monitoring the crossover, and we will do everything we can to ensure that the public spaces aren't used for private use.
Thank you. I just make a comment that parking at your at the shopping center is in short supply sometimes due to your wonderful success at retailing, but I do hope that the public parking is available actually to the public who want to come and visit the Legends, as opposed to the residents who might keep a car there around the clock.
Yeah, that's important to us. We hear about parking all the time. We'll definitely monitor it. Thank you.
Mr. Lowe, I have a question for you as well. So one of the things regarding parking, and we've talked about this a little bit, I know you're doing a lot of upgrades around the center, and I wanted to know the plan for the parking lots themselves, because there's been so many cars parked in them. You have some ruts in places in parking spots, and is there a plan to redo those parking areas with asphalt fill and not just sealing them, but actually to level them out?
Yes, we have actually started a process of basically going around the entire project and resurfacing. But with this project, with the West Lawn project, we anticipate in 2018 completing that all the way around the project.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion before us. We have one last question that I'll entertain, and then we'll vote.
Well, my question is that I thought I understood that we had to have 3 separate motions and 3 separate votes, one on the ordinance, one on the resolution, and then a second resolution. Is that correct?
That is correct. And the motion was for the first one to approve the creation of the new CID.
Then my second stands.
All right. Roll call.
Roll call, Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Regia.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane. Markley.
Aye.
Walters. Motion carries 10-0.
Is there a motion for item number 2?
So moved.
Second.
The item is before us. Roll call.
Roll call, Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Regia.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane. Markley.
Aye.
Walters. Motion carries 10-0.
Is there a motion for item number 3?
So
Motion
moved.
to adopt the resolution.
I'll take that as a motion and second.
Thank you.
Roll call.
Roll call, Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Regia.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Markley. Walters. Motion carries 10-0.
All right, I want to take this opportunity to thank our economic development team, and I'm pleased to say we fed the lawyers amply in November and December, so thank you all for your hard work. And I want to thank Mr. Lowe for continuing to deliver an outstanding site. I'm really excited about the West End developments. It's going to be more of an event space, more like Power and Light, and we know for retail to continue to move that it has to be a destination, and we have one of the great destinations in the metro. And I want to thank all of you for continually deliver that excellent product, and we're pleased to support it tonight. So thank you very much. All right, that brings us now to our administrator's agenda. The first item is good news. We sold some bonds. It doesn't sound exciting, but wait for the report.
Mayor, I'll recognize Debbie Johncher, our Deputy Finance Director, who has a report on the bond sale or the refinancing of what took place on Monday of this week. I'll give you a little bit more information regarding this.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. As I said, I want to report on the sale of our advanced refunding that we did this week. First thing I'm going to do is talk about the benefits of advanced refunding. The primary purpose of doing an advanced refunding is to generate future interest cost savings. There are 2 types of refundings that can be done. An advanced refunding is a refunding that's done more than 90 days prior to the call date. and a current refunding is a refunding that's done within 90 days of the call date. The refunding that we did this week was the 2010A. The current call date is in 2020, so since this is more than 90 days from the call date, it's an advance refunding. Normally, we would do our advance refundings when we do our normal bond sale in February. But due to the anticipated passage of the Federal Tax Reform Act, we wanted to push this forward so that we could get it done prior to the end of the year. And with that, the passage of that bill, that eliminates municipalities' ability to refinance, to do an advanced refunding on tax-exempt bonds after December 31st, 2017. Our anticipated savings last week, we were projecting that we were going to get about a 9.5% savings on our bond issue. And I'll go into the bond issue a little bit more in a few slides, but we did achieve that savings. We had a lot of help work with our underwriter, Piper Jaffray, our financial advisor, Springstead, and our bond counsel, Gilmore and Bell. The refunded bonds were structured the same as the 2010A. There's no additional years added. This bond issue was done strictly for interest cost savings. This is the timeline that we were on 3 weeks ago today. The Commission approved a resolution for us to move forward. Since that time, we've published a preliminary official statement. We held ratings calls with the rating agencies, Standard & Poor's and Moody's. We received those credit ratings, which I'll talk about on the next slide. We priced the bonds on Tuesday, and that brings us to tonight's approval of the bond transaction. With that approval, we would close the bonds on next Thursday, December 28th, which would meet the requirement of closing the bonds prior to the end of the year. Just wanted to note that we did hold ratings calls with both Standard & Poor's and Moody's, and they upheld our current ratings. Standard & Poor's is a AA rating with a stable outlook, and Moody's is an A1 rating with a stable outlook. Both of them in their reports cited our strengths and challenges that we've had in the previous years. There was nothing new cited in the report. We have both reports. If anybody's interested in reading those, we can provide those.
Motion for approval of the ordinance.
Second.
All right. Do you want to tell us how much money we're going to save quick?
Sure. We're going to save about our debt service from years 2021 through 2030. It will be lowered by about $483,000 per year for a total of about $4.8 million over the 10-year remaining term of the bonds.
Yay.
That is fantastic. I want to thank our finance team for jumping on this, being aware of the law passage, jumping on this, and the Commission's flexibility to moving our meeting to tonight, which allows us to accept these bond sales in their completion. So we have a motion and a second before us. Seeing no further comments, roll call.
Roll call. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Regia.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane. Barkley.
Aye.
Walters. Aye. Motion carries 10-0.
And then we have item
Move
number
to
2.
approve the resolution authorizing and directing the sale of said bonds.
Is there a second? Second. Roll call.
Roll call. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Regia.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane. Barkley.
Aye.
Walters. Motion carries 10-0.
I just, Debbie, Carol, let's, after the meeting, I'd like to get this signed off, so don't leave. I want to make sure we get the signatures of the mayor tonight on this.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, congratulations. We just saved $4.8 million of taxpayer money because we have an on-the-ball finance team. All right, the next item, I'm going to recuse myself and turn it over to Hal Walker as Mayor Pro Tem. Hal is just begging me to be Mayor Pro Tem one more time. In his no, he wasn't, but he's willing to do it, so I'll turn it over to you.
Item 2 is the sale of the UG vehicle provided by the UG for the use of the mayor.
Second.
Well, I was going to turn it over to Mr. Bach, but we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and second.
Call the question.
The clerk read the roll.
Roll call, Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Regia.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Markley. Walters. Motion carries 10-0.
All right, thank you. I specifically asked that that be a public decision, so there's no questions about it. Thank you. We now have a presentation on the former Indian Springs site, and I'm going to turn that over to John Stevens, Economic Development.
Good evening again, John Stevens. Getting the presentation up, and then I'll run through it.
Let me just, while we're waiting for that to pop up, I'll just say the goal of this tonight is not to rehash all of the feedback. The goal tonight is to show the clarity of the process that was used, skim over the content and go to the summary, and to put it all into the record so when people ask what happened to the feedback on Indian Springs, it's in the public record. We can refer phone calls because people call about this on a regular basis. And we're not going to, there's nothing to vote on. It's a presentation. But Mr. Stevens, I'd ask you to take it away.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is the public engagement findings. And I want to talk a little bit about the process. But before that, you can see there was an extensive public hearing process starting April 12th. Then May 24th were the initial findings. In July, we came back with this public engagement plan. September 20th, October 16th, October 30th, plus ongoing online feedback was taken. This is the community stakeholder process that was presented in the past to the commission and approved to move forward. We did host facilitated engagement programs. We brought on outside facilitators, both a professional facilitator as well as staff as well as citizens to help coordinate these public engagement sessions. So you can see the sessions as they occurred. The process, there's a bunch of photos. The presentation of the findings, questions that were asked was what is most important? What would you personally like to see? What would you like to see on land? So we worked through a quantitative strategy for soliciting the information. Then we presented a history of Indian Springs, the reality of Indian Springs. We discussed trends impacting development locally, regionally, and nationally. And then we did, after taking that information, we presented an unsolicited proposal, which we discussed to the extent that we could, and then solicited feedback on that. So we did work with our knowledge department here, as well as our research division to compile all of the data. And I'm happy to report that in all, more than 800 citizens provided feedback in this process, from online public sessions and other sources, including calls, emails, stopping by, etc. So what are the results? A little bit about where the folks came from. You can see the distance. We tracked where people were coming from, less than 1 mile, 2 miles, 3 to 5, or more than 5. So we have that. How important is Indian Springs to the participants in this? I think goes without saying. More than 3/4 of those who provided feedback said that Indian Springs and the future of Indian Springs and development on it is very important. So the most important amenity that they believe, so what kind of purpose should ultimately this serve? The majority said Wyandotte County destination, with the second most saying Kansas City area destination. So going a little bit further, from a ranked list, ranking very important to not important at all, in ranked very important to highly important, 78%, so once again, almost 80% said a neighborhood grocery, then local restaurant, specialty grocer or food provider, and so on down the list. So then in open feedback, where they weren't given a list to choose from, but we took a lot of feedback of just open-ended feedback, you can see grocery, retail, and then jobs. And what we kept seeing recurring was various jobs, quality jobs for citizens. And then community center, restaurants, entertainment, and so on down the list. So then we wanted to take a look to make this more useful for digestion and understanding. So then we did a cluster summary. So we took people that gave feedback saying, I want this kind of store, or I want a big box, or I want this, and we organized those into a discernible format. 22% said retail, highest number. Grocery, community center, recreation, jobs, and restaurant. That's the descending order of what people said they wanted. So then we did, what is the best primary use in an open ranked feedback? Neighborhood retail and dining again. Then we asked the question of, could this be a mixed use project? Could there be more than one use on the site? 83.4% said yes, that they could see multiple uses given the scale of the site. Then we asked, what is the development timeline citizens would like to see? And you can see right here, 36.2% said less than a year, 48% said less than 3 years, so you have a very high percentage saying 3 or fewer years to get to a project plan. Then we asked, beyond the actual development, what is most important on this site? What are the issues concerning the site? Far and away, security was number one, followed by sustainability, parking, mass transit, walkability, all scored high. Then we asked for development design, and it should be designed for. Number one, ranked number one or number two, was provide jobs for the community, followed by provide services to the neighborhood, and then provide services to visitors. So then we brought in this unsolicited proposal, and you can see the presentation here. This is what we presented, discussing from a broad-based feedback. 36%, when we did a positive negative polling, 36% were undecided. That was the majority of those. 34% had an overall positive feedback on the unsolicited proposal. 30% had a negative feedback. So among the undecided positives and negatives in toto, what were the issues? Number one, 72% of people said, we need to know who this is. We need to know who these people are that are bringing this unsolicited proposal before we can make a qualified decision. Followed by, will it bring jobs? What will they be distributing or manufacturing? Will it cost the unified government? That was asked in various ways as far as tax incentives or payments or what have you. Will there be retail for the community? Will it look attractive? There were a lot of variable feedbacks based on the look and feel of the space. And then when will they build it? How fast? Those were the feedbacks. So then the positives versus negatives in the verbal captures. Create jobs, locally owned, retail, food, grocery, restaurants, solar. Those were all the positive pieces of the feedback from the public. The negatives, highest negative again was they need to know who it is before they can make a decision. 2 was traffic. There was concern about truck traffic, car traffic, et cetera. There was concern about warehouse or too industrial. There was concern about it costing the UG too much. So in conclusion, what are the big kind of summary findings that we could take away from all of this data that we looked at? The general conclusion, obviously, public cares deeply about Indian Springs and the future of it. That's no surprise to anyone. They do want it to be a Wyandotte County or KC destination. Overall, in variable feedback, they want restaurants, grocery, and retail on this site in some way, shape, or form. They believe that it could be mixed use. They want jobs. The citizens want jobs that are considered, quote, good jobs. That matters very much. They want development quickly. And they would like to see some type of community recreation component. So furthermore, we believe, based on this feedback, that the unsolicited proposal meets many of the citizen requirements, but the public must know who is developing and who will be occupying and running the development. Any project that goes on this site would have to be clearly explained and outlined in detail, and then any mixed use would have to demonstrate community benefit. And with that, that's the end of the presentation. I'll take any questions.
All right, so there is the snapshot of work. This you hate to boil down how many months and hours of work for you and your team into a 10-minute presentation, but it does give us a clear snapshot, and it also importantly, gives us something to point back when people call and say, hey, you can go on the website and you can check out the PowerPoint, you can hear the presentation. So that gives people a touch point for our community to show that their feedback was heard and recorded, and gives us something to shoot for as we're working on the development. Mr. Walker wants another Nebraska Furniture Mart at Indian Springs.
That works.
All right. Seeing no further questions, thank you very much.
All right. Thank
All
you.
right.
And Mayor, I'd just like to commend John Stevens for his efforts in putting all this together as we've gone through all these citizen evaluations and business briefings and such. Nice.
Well done. And thanks to all the citizens who participated. Over 800 people came and participated, took out a whole evening, many of them. Some folks went online. We just want to thank everyone for their willingness to give us feedback. All right, we are adjourned as the Board of Commissioners, and we are reconvened as the Land Bank Board of Trustees. All items are on consent.
Second.
Would anyone in attendance tonight, anyone left in attendance tonight, like to pull an item from this? Otherwise, they will all be voted on by a single vote. Let the record show no one is moving. It is properly before us. Roll call.
Roll call. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Regia.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane. Markley. Walters. Motion carries 10-0.
All right, we have a public announcement. Commissioner Bynum.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to first express my irritation with going after the land bank because our tradition is that the land banks always last. So apparently we're breaking with tradition, but that's okay. What I'm asking is for Commissioner Walker and Mayor Holland to join me down at the podium, please.
It's not a firing squad, is it?
I guess I should say I'm not asking. Thank you very much for joining me down here. It's an honor for me to be able to be here to present both of you with some small symbols of appreciation for your service. Let me get these out. In my almost 3 years here, I've come to understand the commitment of time and heart that it takes to participate as a public servant when one asks the public to allow us to serve in this way. And for that, on behalf of all my colleagues and all of the unified government, we want to say a sincere thank you to both of you. We wish you the very, very best. So first we have a plaque of appreciation for Commissioner Hal Walker in appreciation.
Thank you.
And we also have, do not take a picture of me bending down to get this. Thank you. Mayor Holland actually served first as a commissioner. And so, Mayor, we have a plaque thanking and honoring you for your time as a commissioner. And then we have also a second plaque honoring you for your time as mayor. And with that, I'd like to turn it to Doug Bach as soon as I show this beautiful, beautiful piece of, there, okay, yeah, definitely. So here is the very beautiful token of our appreciation for your time as mayor. Oh, here we go.
Well, as Commissioner Bynum said, I also want to thank both of you for all your efforts and work and working with you for all these years. Commissioner Walker, it's been a pleasure to work with you when you were here on staff and as well as a commissioner. I've certainly enjoyed all the time and all your efforts. Mayor, the same to you. It's been a pleasure to work with you on a daily basis for all these years, and thank you much for all your years. I will just note that the two plaques for the as a commissioner service says an appreciation for your timeless service and dedication. Commissioner Walker was with us from 2013 to 2017, and the mayor was with us from 2007 to 2013. And it's with that, I would ask Commissioner Walker, did you want to say any words at this time?
Can you speak directly into the microphone, please?
Yeah. I want to say I was privileged to serve with each and every one of you. I enjoyed, well, most of the time with most of you. But I think even in our those times where we got hot and disagreed, there was a learning process and an appreciation that occurs. And certainly, while there are more important things in life than serving on an elected body, this will always be one of the highlights of my career. And I thank each and every one of you for making it a much better experience. Thank you.
And I'll say, Mayor, his plaque for the mayor says, with our greatest appreciation, we present Mayor Mark Holland with this award in recognition for your dedicated service to our community and our organization by advancing innovation, public safety, transparency, and evolving a brighter future for downtown Kansas City, Kansas. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you. Well, I didn't prepare a full 25-minute sermon, which you can thank me for later. I do want to just say thank you to the commissioners for the opportunity to work with you, and to thank the staff at the Unified Government. We have a great team of 2,200 employees who work hard every single day on behalf of this city, and I want to thank the employees for the opportunity to work with you as well, especially the staff in my office. I have a wonderful staff. Maureen Mahoney is here tonight, my chief of staff, but all of the staff in the mayor's office have been a delight to work with. I also want to thank the 165,000 citizens of Wyandotte County. What an honor it is to serve as an elected official, and certainly as mayor of my hometown. And I thank you very much for the privilege of serving, the opportunity to serve. 10 years of elected office has been a great honor, so thank you. And I'll just close, though I am confident, my wife has never watched one of these shows, so I'm confident she was not watching now. But I do want to thank my wife Julie and our 4 kids. It's a substantial sacrifice for the family, for me to serve in these roles, and all of you who have families. All of you have families and know that it is a sacrifice to them. And so I just want to thank my family for giving me the opportunity to do this. So it's been a great honor. I give honor to God for the privilege and for the opportunity to serve in Kansas City, Kansas, and Wyandotte County. Thank you. We're adjourned.
Just jumped on it right there for you, Mayor. I didn't want to leave you hanging.
No, that's all right. All right. Bang a gavel for the last time here. We are adjourned.